This month of the How's All That Workin' For You podcast is sponsored by J. Brooks Coffee Roasters in Memphis, Tennessee. Urban Joe is the house favorite at J. Brooks for cold brew coffee. The legendary flavor of Urban Joe will ignite your taste buds with captivating shades of cocoa and cream. With a pleasantly balanced, bold body, the dark roast lover will fall head over heels for this roast. Cold brew is very quick and simple to make. It contains 2/3 less acids than hot brew coffee, so it's a perfect choice for anyone who has reflux or needs a stomach-friendly option for coffee. And if you make cold brew at home, you can make both cold and hot coffee with your solution. Everyone loves an adventure story. Make your day an epic adventure with a steaming cup or cold brew of Urban Joe. To order this signature blend for yourself and learn more about J. Brooks Coffee, click the link in the show notes or visit jbrookscoffeeroasters.com. That's the letter J, brookscoffeeroasters.com. You are officially invited to create some breathing room. This is the absolute best podcast to find the strategies, resources, and motivation you need to stop drowning in overwhelm, break free from hustle culture, and live out your God-given purpose. I'm your host, Rachel Baker, and girl, I've been there, done that. It is my God-given purpose to help you find space for an intentional life so you can confidently live in those strengths, skills, and passions that light you up and serve others. I know you are ready to create some breathing room, so let's do it together. Welcome to episode 26 of Create Some Breathing Room. I am excited to continue our conversation for this month on identity. And today we are blessed because we have author Jenn Schultz in the house. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation that we had. If you do not know Jenn, you're going to love her. Let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we will get right into our interview. So Jenn Schultz is the author of She's Not Your Enemy, and she typically writes about messy faith and shaking off insecurity and pursuing God's purpose confidently. You know, we're all about that here, right? Her mission is to empower women to ditch shame and striving by finding identity in God and freedom in abundant grace. She's a wife and she's a mom, and she says she reads too many books at once, but I need to know if that's a thing. Is that a possible thing? Because maybe me too, Jenn. She drinks decaf coffee, which I'm here for, and she speaks in scriptures and movie quotes, a lovely combination. You can find her at Jenn Schultz Author on social media and at her website, jennschultzauthor.com. I cannot wait for you to hear this. We have an amazing conversation about who we are in God, that identity, and the struggle that we have with comparison, competition, not feeling like we're enough. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that. We're going to talk about Jenn's book, which released September 5th of this year, 2023. You're going to want it. You're going to need it. So settle in with your favorite beverage and let's hear from Jenn. Hello, Jenn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I am very excited for this conversation that we are about to have because I saw this book coming. I saw the title. I saw what it was about. And I thought, oh my, that is exactly what my people need. That is exactly the thing we talk about in this community of, being confident in who you are. And so I'm very excited for all that we're going to get into today. Before we dive really deep, I have to pull myself back a little. Would you please, I kind of introduced you a little, but let everybody know, who is Jenn?
Well, I am Jenn. I am a wife and a mom and a writer, book lover and word lover in general, reader and writer. I live in the Pacific Northwest, but I am originally from the East Coast, and that was where I spent most of my life. So I'm still kind of figuring myself out here.
Yeah, that's quite an
Totally different
adjustment.
culture.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, totally different culture, like across the country. But you get used to it. It's beautiful here.
I would love to know, and I ask every guest this, I would love to know for you, what does breathing room look like, or what does that feel like for you?
It's so hard to say what it looks like because I am not a very intentional person by nature. I am not very good at scheduling and planning and making sure that I have that breathing room in my life, but I know the difference when I'm getting it and when I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm getting it, I I feel like I am that much more easily able to connect with God. I'm that much more easily able, even if everything is chaos around me, I can stop and still feel centered and be centered.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when I'm letting the chaos get to me, when I am feeling particularly impatient or entitled, when
Yes.
I'm trying to make everything happen for myself and I'm spinning all the plates,
Mm-hmm.
that is that is when I'm lacking breathing room and I need to get intentional and make that happen. So I don't know if that answers your question well enough, but I know what it feels like when I'm centered and when I'm not, when I'm breathing space and when I'm not.
Yeah, that's so important to identify, I think, because a lot of times it sounds, kind of like this ethereal up in the air concept, like, yes, I should create some breathing room, but to know what that feels like for you, to say, I can tell I'm not getting it right now. I feel impatient. I feel overwhelmed. I feel crazy. Kids are asking for a snack. You just had a snack. But
Like,
right,
exactly.
right. The
It turns into a volcano.
Raging monster comes out, right?
So true.
Yes. So I think it is really important. That just means, you're still on that journey to finding the ways to create that intentional space and breathing room, but you know what it feels like when you get there.
Oh yeah. And it's night and day difference for sure.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, I really want to get into this book, you guys. This book is amazing. We're talking about identity this month, and there's a lot of different aspects to that. We are starting in with kind of just basic Enneagram. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it looks like to feel confident and what it feels, when you're not so confident in your identity. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit of what I am finding in reading. So the book is She's Not Your Enemy, which I love. And it's a lot about, well, you can tell us a lot about it. I'll let you get into it. I would love to know, what could we benefit from as we are wrestling with this concept, right? Like as we're going through this idea of comparison and competition and insecurity, there's a lot of that in here. So I'd love to know what led you to writing this book. I know there's personal story behind it. And then the benefit of knowing that that's an aspect of our lives that we need to address. Is that a lot? That was a loaded question, Jenn.
There's a lot, and I could go on and on, trust me. So I have always, I think, struggled with comparison, insecurity, just looking at the people around me and just trying to figure out where I rank in terms of the people around me. Am I doing better than her? Am I doing worse than her? And what does that mean about me? What does that say about me? And so I feel like I've been set up very well to write this book. Not that I have overcome it by any means, but that I have just had to tackle it again and again and again.
Right.
I've had a lot of practice. So there you go. It's not that I'm over it and cured, but I've had a lot of practice on it. And so I'm really excited to be able to share that with people. Several years back, I've been writing for a long time, but not even several, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote a post and used that term, she's not your enemy. And it just got so much response to it because I think it resonates. Like we naturally compare to people, which is a whole topic in itself. But we do it so often and we see it everywhere. We see it on our phones and we start comparing. We see people on our phones and start comparing. We see people at the grocery store. We see people at school, at our kids' schools, at church. It's everywhere. And so I think it started resonating with people. And around that time, I was considering, I was actually watching a show. I was watching a TV show, and I remember, in the first episode, just writing off the characters like, oh, she's annoying. Oh, she's such a go-getter. She's like one of those untouchable people. I couldn't relate to her at all. He's so like cranky and just rude all the like, what is the deal? And I just wrote off all these characters and I kind of stuck with the story. And what happened was they started revealing the vulnerabilities of these characters. And they just became so much more human and so much more real to me. And alongside that, I started thinking, well, that's how it is with people, right? Like we present one way or we assume people are this one way, but the more we get to know them, the more we let them be vulnerable, they surprise us.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that in terms of comparison and how, I just make these snap judgments about people and how well they're doing based on what they're presenting to the world. But I don't know what's going on underneath. I know there's a lot going on underneath for me. What if I changed my perspective? So I started looking at people and saying, there's probably a lot more there than I know. What if they're not the enemy? What if they're not the person that's out to get me or make me feel bad about myself? And so that's kind of where this whole concept came from. And then the more I dug into it, into comparison, because I thought, okay, this is going to be a book about comparison, right? Like, how do we fix it? The more I dug into it, I realized it wasn't a comparison issue. It was so much more an identity issue. It was so much more about how I saw God, how I thought he saw me, and the questions that I was asking about myself that I was going to other people to answer. So like, am I loved? Am I valuable? Do I have a place in this world? Do I have a purpose in this world? And I would look at other people and I would say, well, obviously not, because look how great she's doing. Like if I really had a purpose, I'd be out there doing what she does. Or if I was really a good mom, like I would be doing what this mom does.
Oh gosh, that's a whole other conversation.
We are like, moms are the hardest on themselves, but we're also the hardest on other moms. And it's just a crazy conundrum. Yes. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. But yeah, I realized I was asking these questions and I'm looking at other people to get the answers. I wasn't going to God for them. And so this book that started being about comparison really became about identity and about dealing with our false perspectives of God and who he is so that we could change the way that he we saw how he saw us and how we identified ourselves and be rooted and established in that and how that affects all of our relationships. It affects the way we look at other people and it affects how we are able to work alongside them. Because it is such, the title is She Is Not Your Enemy, but there is an enemy and it is such one of his tactics to divide us and make us feel isolated, make us feel insecure and alone so that he can take us out. And so that's really what the book became about in a nutshell. Like, listen to me, I could go on and on.
Listen, well, and there is so much good content in here as you dive into all those different aspects of it. But I love how you went in thinking it was going to be one thing. You have this message, this is what resonates. And as you're getting ready and as you're writing and as you're studying, you have that self-awareness, that realization. Like, I love that God works in those ways. I love that he speaks to us and gives us the information as we need it, as we're ready to receive it. And then what a beautiful message to share with, like, you guys, guess what I found?
Exactly.
Right? Like, how amazing is this? It's like you said, it's not like I'm the expert, I've got this sorted. It's like, you have to tell everybody, like, you will not believe what I figured out.
Like, can we all be free together, please? Like, Can we all be freed up to do what we're called to do and cheer each other on? Like, that is such my goal with this book. Can we find the freedom? Can we find the grace? Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have to keep talking some more about, because that's same. I just want everybody to just lift each other up, feel confident in who you are as God created you to be. So
exactly.
I'm here for that conversation.
Woo!
Okay. Ooh, we're having hallelujah. Thank you, Spirit. I don't know. We're having a moment.
God moments for sure.
Okay. So another question I have as I was going through some of this, I'd love to know your thoughts on how you think this struggle that we have with comparison, with confidence in our own identity as God created us, right? How does that get in the way of how we do create breathing room for ourselves or allow ourselves to have breathing room in our lives? Does that make sense? Like, I see such a conflict where when you're so torn up and stuck in this comparison and I've got to be as good as her, or I've got to make myself better, work harder, do more. Like, we are all those anti hustle culture here. We don't like any of it. But I feel that hustle culture really feeds into this because a lot of the times we're hustling because there's this bar that someone else has set, right? We've got to get to this point. We've got to be like them, right?
Yeah.
And so I just know you talk a lot about these insecurities or the perfectionism, right? The lack of boundaries. Like, what all do you see within that keeps us from creating that breathing room for ourselves?
That's a good question. I think something that I found studying this all out is how much we live in fear of scarcity culture or scarcity, basically. We are so worried that there's not enough to go around. Like, if she gets this blessing, there's not going to be any left over for me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all in how we view God. There's a part of the book right at the very beginning that I talk about why perspective of God matters so much. And I talk about, that parable about the master that goes away and leaves his servants with talents of gold.
Yes.
And two of them are like, I worked really hard and I made more money for you. Like, here it is. And the master's like, yes, come celebrate with me. This is awesome. But then there's a third guy who's like, you don't do the work. Like, you're just reaping what somebody else has already sown and put the work into. I was afraid. And so I hid it. And, here's what you got. And it's all like these three servants are serving the same master, right? It all has to be in their perspective. The two saw this master as loving, good, generous, providing these talents for them to be able to do more, abundant. They didn't see it as a job. They saw it as, oh, here's this great chance, this great opportunity to please this master who's been so good to me. Because what master invites his servants to come celebrate with him? Like, why? Like, why would you do that?
Right.
But then the third servant must have seen his master completely differently. He must have looked at him and said, I just see all the ways that you put pressure on me. I see all the ways that you make me feel bad about myself. I see all the ways that, like, I'm never good enough for you. So I'm not going to do anything for you. And it's very similar in how we look at God. If we see him as stingy, if we see him as holding out on us, why would we be motivated to serve him? We're going to be out for ourselves. We're going to be looking out for number one, as society likes to say.
Right.
And that's the scarcity talking. That's this fear of, like, I'm not getting what I'm due. I'm not getting what I've worked hard for. I'm not getting what these other people are getting. It's just the wrong perspective of God. So I think it really starts there, being able to see that God is a God of abundance, that he is working for our good, and that he has a plan and a purpose for us, and all of that we go through in the book. But it changes your perspective completely, and it gives you space to have breathing room, right? Like, instead of like, I've got to strive and hustle and I'm running on this hamster wheel that never gets me anywhere. It's like, no, God is going to bless me abundantly. I just need to obey. I know who God is. I know who he says I am, and I'm not going to be lost in this fear that he's going to hold out on me. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. I love that perspective. Because it is more about your mindset, a perspective shift, and how you see that relationship and who you are, your identity in him. And that's actually like the perfect segue. I have this section. It's from, I think it's chapter 2 in your book. And if it's okay, I'm going to read just a little
quote
from there. Okay. So it's all this that you were talking about like, does God play favorites? Does he, there's only so much and I can't have it. And so in this section, you said rich theology means a faith and hope that might shake you up a bit. If God is working all things for our good, then we might not even recognize the good in what is right in front of us. You might have to trust that what is good for her is not necessarily what is good for you. It doesn't mean God's rejection, despite what it might feel like. And I loved that section because, well, multiple reasons, but one is all that you just said with that idea of perspective. Also, that verse from the Bible makes me a little bit crazy when people talk about, God will work everything for your good as if like everything's going to go well. That wealth and prosperity gospel that's not anywhere in the Bible, that makes me crazy. So it's for my good, right? Yeah. For those who love him, are called according to his purpose, he's working for my good. And so those things that someone else is doing really well and it looks amazing, that may be toxic for me. That may not be what my spirit needs at all in my life. And then also, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day about blessings and how when we talk about blessings, we've imagined that as like this, like angelic, wonderful. It feels good and it looks good. And you're like, #blessed, right?
Right.
And so in real life, though, I can look back on my 40 years and see some of the hardest stuff I have come through. In that time, there was no feeling of #blessed in any of it.
Right.
But now where I am, the things I've learned, the things I'm able to share and contribute with others, that is such a blessing. That is for my good. He works good through all things, right? So just in that like paragraph, that all just kind of jumped out at me. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that one.
Thank you.
Because it's such a good reminder and perspective to have that he is working for your good. You just might not see it as that yet.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the psalm that says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Psalm or a proverb? This is me blanking because I'm recording this interview, and that's what happens. But
that's okay. It's in the Old Testament, you guys. Psalms or proverbs.
It's in the Old Testament. Go find it. But it says that if we delight ourselves in the Lord, He gives us the desires of our hearts, and you can take that to mean if I'm really good for God, He's going to give me what I want. I don't think it's saying that. I think it's saying that if you really find delight in God, He's going to shape your desires to what is good for you. And that's what He's going to work out for you in your life. Not only for you, but for the people around you.
Right. It's your heart and your will aligning with His.
Exactly.
Even I think of Jesus in the garden. He's like, this really is awful and I don't like it. Could you please take this from me? Knowing what's coming. Knowing the sacrifice that's coming. He's like, this is horrible. Please take it. But also, your will be done. And that over the years has been such a comfort to me to know that even the Son of God was like, Holy Father, this is awful and I don't want it, please.
Right.
Also, though, I'm here for your will, whatever that looks like.
Right. And He could see, I love the scripture that says, for the joy set before Him, like God was able to help him see past what was about to happen, which was horrific. But He could see the joy that was going to be ahead of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love, girl, we're getting deep theology today.
Oof. Let's do it.
I mean, you say rich theology. Means a faith and hope that might shake you up a bit. It's right there in the book. Looking at.
Right. It's funny. Like I hear quotes from the book and I'm like, did I write that? Does that mean? Amen. That's awesome.
That sounds pretty good. Who came up with, that was mine. Okay.
Exactly. That's how you know it's the Holy Spirit behind it, because I hear stuff and I don't even recognize it, honestly, sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, praise God, like he's getting that word out. It's not mine. So
Yep.
hopefully that's what's going to help people, not me and all of my amazing expertise, which I don't have.
I love that. That's what it looks like when you are walking in obedience. When you are just taking the steps, saying, I don't even know what's happening right now, but you've got it. And what a brave thing to do. So thank you for doing it, because I know so many will be blessed by this. Hey, it's Rachel, your go-to encourager and coach. I know you love our podcast talks, but imagine taking that connection to the next level in person. I'm more than a clarity coach. I'm someone who's been in the trenches, juggling all the things. I get it. I've danced with chaos, overloaded schedules, and the struggle to prioritize self-care. But I found the rhythm, and I've got the strategies to help your ladies create some breathing room. So if you're organizing an event, whether it's a conference, church gathering, or retreat, and you want a speaker who brings humor, real talk, and a dose of inspiration, I'm your girl. Let's chat about making your event a memorable one. Visit racheldbaker.com/speaking. That's racheldbaker.com/speaking. I can't wait to connect. Okay, we could clearly talk about this all day long. So I'm going to wrap it up with a couple questions.
Okay.
I know you've said like the creating of the breathing room is still a struggle, but are there any specific tools that you have or strategies that you know that have really helped you manage your time better so that you can create some breathing room? I like to hear from others on what works for them in their brains. So do you have anything like that you're like, this is super helpful?
Gosh, I feel like it sounds very counterintuitive, but getting time that is just quiet and still. And I feel like that, I mean, it's very biblical, right? Like it's in the Bible again and again. Be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still.
Yes.
But do I take that time, or do I seize whatever time I have to do all the things so that I can get accomplished or get ahead? Because I want to be in control, and I want to control my outcome and all of that. So for me, I know when things start to get too busy, too chaotic, too loud, I need to stop and get some quiet time, like very quiet. Like I'm taking a walk without headphones in. I'm not listening to a podcast. I'm not that I have anything against podcasts. But I'm no,
I get it.
You need the quiet and the lack of noise, the lack of scrolling through your phone or searching for something. Obviously, like it's hard to get when you have kids at home, but getting that time away and doing whatever you can to preserve that time, if it means getting up early, that is one thing that helps me tremendously. And I always find that I'm so much more creative and so much more ready to go after I've had that time.
Yes.
Which is counterintuitive, right? Like you think like, oh, if I just scroll through Instagram, I'm going to get some great inspiration and I'm going to be able to say all the things and make all the cool reels and stuff. And it's like, no, like the more you get away and you have that quiet time and that space that is just you and God, quiet, even if you're not talking to God, even if you're just sitting with him, it makes all the difference. So that's one thing. I'm sure that scheduling and planning helps out very much. I am not good at it. Luckily, I married someone who is good at it. And so he helps me quite a bit.
Listen, that's a tool and strategy right there. Just marry somebody else who's got the skills.
Marry someone who's got it.
There you go. Work it out.
There you go. Fun
but
fact.
I would say that's leaning into somebody else who can support you with those skills you don't have. I would say.
And the accountability, right? To be like, you said you were going to use this time for this. Are you using it? Even if he's like, you said you were going to nap and not scroll through your phone. Are you actually napping? Leave your phone downstairs. Just all of that. It very much helps. So even if it's not a spouse, it could be a
Yes.
friend, a
Yeah.
family member, a roommate, whoever
A
you've
life
got around you.
coach. That's literally
A
the thing that
life
I
coach.
do for some people.
Please.
That
Ask the questions and hold the accountability because it's so
yes,
needed
that
for people
accountability
like me.
piece. Yes, so
I
good.
am very self-sabotaging when it comes to my own breathing space. Like I'm like, but I can't, I'm an Enneagram 3. I think we've talked about Enneagrams. I don't remember.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a 2
I know some people are
with
like not about that.
strong 3 wing. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I feel it
I'm
deeply.
fairly confident that I'm a 3. I still go back and forth sometimes because 3s kind of feel like they have to be like everybody. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I might actually be an 8. Oh, I might not. Well, actually, no, I'm definitely not an 8, but I might actually be a 9. I might actually be a 4. I think I'm all the things, but I know that like with my work ethic, I just want to keep going. Like I just want to keep doing it, keep making things happen. And I need somebody in my life to be able to help me create space, and I need I need to see the signs and be able to stop and take a step back and do what I need to do. So I appreciate that question a lot. It's helping me to consider what do I need, especially in this chaotic season.
Yes. And listen, if you need a little support, that's what I do. I'm here for that. I love it.
I love it. Do it.
My children would say, I say, like, that's one of my spiritual gifts. My kids are like, being bossy. Is that your spiritual gift? I'm like, you know what? Sometimes people need to be told what's up. So
yes, sometimes people need to be told what to do. I'll take it. It helps. It really does.
Yes, it does. Okay. Well, we'll wind down 2 last questions, and this one's not as easy, but the last one's real easy. Okay. The second to last, I would love to know if there is a book or a podcast that you just love, recommend more than any other than your own, obviously, because we're definitely all getting that one now. But if there's another book or another podcast that you would love to share, what would that be?
I love the book Gentle and Lowly by Dane Ortland. That book helped my perspective with God so much and just relieved some of that pressure of me feeling like I had to please God or contort myself in a certain way to make myself acceptable to God.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who he is. It's interesting. He writes in the book about comfort theology. And I'm like, I need more of that in my life because I've seen a lot of I've just interpreted a lot of the like, got to do this and got to do that. And you should feel bad about yourself and that kind of theology. But I need more of the comfort theology. And I'm hoping that that's what my book does as well, is it encourages people to see God as the compassionate, gracious God that he is. But that book definitely helped me out so much. That's the number one off the top of my head right now. All right. I have not listened to a lot of podcasts recently because, again, like I kind of need the quiet time.
Yes.
So when I get it, I'm like, it's quiet, but I do read a lot. So that's one of the ones that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, I love that. I do. I love podcasts. And I mean, obviously, I make one. I love to listen to a lot of others. I have a lot I could recommend, but I do think, part of having that breathing room in your life, you can only have so much input at once and really be able to process it at the same time. Right. So if you're needing quiet, lack of input, or if the only input you need is to review and reflect your own thoughts, you're in conversation with God, trying to listen, you cannot be listening to him and listening to this podcast or music or whatever at the same time. And so I'm never going to be like, you should listen to all the podcasts. You should read all. I mean, obviously I love books. I love podcasts, but that need for being quiet, being still is crucial. One of my favorite things, somebody said this to me and now it's like my mantra that, like Jesus Christ, the Son of God who created all the things, took time away and rested. He was alone. Absolutely. He went and prayed and was with only a group of small friends sometimes. Like if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for you. It's good enough for me.
Or if Jesus needed it, you definitely need it.
Right? How much more do we need it? Yeah. So I kind of go back to that as well. Like, okay, it's something we do need and was modeled for us, right? So I love that. I'm going to make sure and grab a link for that book and we'll put that in the show notes too. So Thank you for that. Last thing, super easy. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
I have recently changed all of my social handles and my website to JennSchultzAuthor.com. So I know the spelling can be a little off for everybody. It's JennSchultz author, AUTHOR.com, or that's my handle just by itself. I am constantly on Instagram and updating and Threads. I'm a big Threads fan now. Less on Twitter now, or whatever it's called.
It's like an X or something anymore.
It's X now, and I'm like, how do you X? Like, is that used to tweet? Now it's like, do you X? Is that the verb now?
I don't understand.
But I'm happy to thread. Thread is kind of where it's at for me. And Facebook. I'm also on Facebook. So I love interacting with people. If you want to send me a message or have any questions for me, just let me know.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking time and coming on and talking through this with us today. I have been so blessed reading this and getting to know you more. Of course, we're going to have to do this again sometime.
Oh my gosh, please.
This is fun.
It's just been a great conversation.
Talking with you. Yes. But I really appreciate you. I know you're launching this book into the world, which is a busy season. So I appreciate the time and energy in this conversation today. And I know many will be blessed by it. So thanks, Jenn.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Rachel.
Thanks so much for listening today. Be sure to check the show notes to get links for all the resources mentioned in this episode. As always, your reviews make such a difference, so thank you for taking the time to leave those for us. Your ratings and thoughts mean so much. I love reading each and every one. As we wrap up today, please remember, life can feel crazy and overwhelming sometimes, but you will never regret taking the time to create some breathing room.